In October 2005, I participated in a Witness for Peace delegation, joining a dozen U.S. citizens who sought to learn directly from the people of Nicaragua about the extent of hunger and poverty, the effect of our own U.S. foreign policy on them, and in particular the issues that affect food security for the people of Nicaragua. Nicaragua's greatest physical resource is its rich land. Agricultural practices are critical then to economic health, and it was quite appropriate that we focused primarily upon the issue of food security. We met with several stakeholder groups, such as the National Union of Farmers and Ranchers, the Rural Workers Union, a coffee producers union for small farmers, a fair trade shop, research groups, and several rural cooperatives.
Contemplan la canasta básica, que son 54 productos.
And I want to say another thing, that within all of this discussion, within all of the rules that determines food security, there's this important thing called the basic basket of goods, or the basic bread basket. And it says in the very same Constitution that all of us, all of our families, should have the opportunity to, within our own homes, possess all of the products that are in that basic basket, all 54 products that are in that basic basket of goods. And the basic basket of goods today is valued at about 6,000 cordobas a month. And so just imagine having a teacher who earns a basic salary of about 900 cordobas a month. How can that person afford to provide for food security for their family when they can't even get 30% of the basic basket of goods that is required? The same thing happens with police officers. The same thing happens with army officials, with people who work in the free trade zones, people who produce tobacco, and people who work in other businesses.
Nicaragua is the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. About 70% of Nicaraguans earn no more than $2 per day, the World Bank's definition of poverty, and 20% live in extreme poverty, earning less than $1 a day. The average monthly wage is $37. We visited the struggling urban community of Aqualinca, whose members glean a living off the capital city's dump.
Aqualinca has 10 different parts, 10 different sectors.
Y el sector más vulnerable, más pobre, es el de Cobrení y La Chuleta.
And so, but the part of Aqualinca that's the most vulnerable is the one of Aqualinca and also the one of the dump. And so I'm responsible for the base house.
Casa base significa Centro de Atención Básica para la Salud.
And the base house means the center for healthcare attention.
Donde cualquier habitante de Aqualinca puede venir a cualquier hora, en cualquier día, en cualquier momento a pasar consulta.
When any member of Aqualinca can come here and at any time, on any day, at any moment, and come here for a consultation.
Siempre y cuando sí tenga los síntomas que nosotros podemos darle atención.
And that's when they have symptoms that we can give the medical attention to.
Como es malaria, dengue, diarrea.
Like malaria, dengue, diarrhea.
Que esas son las enfermedades que más comúnmente atacan en Aqualinca.
And these are the diseases the illnesses that attack most right here in Aqualinca.
Por el lugar donde nosotros vivimos. Es un barrio que está a la orilla del lago.
And that's to say the place where we live. This is a neighborhood that is next to the water.
We met with an economist from the Center for International Studies.
And so on the other side, then you have the other component of electricity, which is distribution, which is in the hands of a transnational company, which is called Unión Fenosa. That Unión Fenosa has not been maintaining the electrical lines and its basic infrastructure. It has old lines, it has old transformers, and so it causes loss of profit there. And it's so bad that it causes up to a 30% marginal loss. And so we see that they're trying to push this inefficiency of the companies off onto the consumers who buy the electricity, and using the pretense of the rising cost of oil. And so now the entire productive sector of Nicaragua is being influenced by this rising cost of petroleum, such as in the case of rice producers, of sorghum producers, of people who are farmers, ranchers, and people who work in dairy products.
Demandado como una condición de parte del Fondo Monetario Internacional.
And this 25% increase in electricity costs has been demanded as a condition by the IMF. And so now what's happening is that their inefficiency is decapitalizing the profitable companies of the state. And so the state is not investing then in other forms of producing energy, in new energy plants, and in alternative forms of producing energy. And so Nicaragua, which has a great potential for producing energy, is not. We're not using that potential. Of course, in addition to this, we have to add in there the free trade agreement. Primarily, the products from the United States, the agribusiness products, receive a high level of subsidies. But in the meantime, our national products, don't receive any kind of subsidies. And another thing is that there's no constant or continuous financing from the banks. So you can imagine what the impact of this free trade agreement will be in the rural area. And the impacts on the productive sector of Nicaragua will be disastrous.
We met with representatives of the ATC, the Rural Workers Union.
It's a worry for us. We see that with the entry of GMOs into our country, that this could cause damage and contaminate the creole seeds, which are the national seeds.
The native seeds.
The native seeds of Nicaragua. And we'll also lose the variety of that our country has, the variety of seeds. The GMO seeds you have to keep; those have to be produced for every year, whereas our native seeds are born year after year, and we can just save those. So what happens when you modify seeds? Well, that creates a dependency upon multinationals. That takes away our right to live as a people.
Why would you have to use GMO seed?
¿Por qué tendrías que usar transgénicos, semillas transgénicas?
Con la aprobación del CAFTA,
With the approval of CAFTA, without a doubt, there's going to be foreign GMO seeds that are going to come into our land and contaminate our own native seeds. And this is what we're struggling against. We're struggling for a sovereignty over our food. So in the first place, we were always against the ratification of this free trade agreement in Nicaragua. We're not against a free trade agreement. We're against this type of agreement because of all the impositions of this treaty. I gained the conclusion that this is going to hit our economy really, really hard and make our country more dependent.
We saw a truly viable alternative when we visited CIPRES, the Center for Rural and Social Promotion, Research and Development. CIPRES told us that since the 1950s, the development of large export-based agricultural methods in Nicaragua has resulted in a series of crises, especially for the small farmer. CIPRES concentrates instead on promoting urban and rural development through community-based alternatives, trying to ensure that development is truly appropriate to the people of Nicaragua. So CIPRES supports a sustainable agricultural model based on an informed, integrated family farm using appropriate technology. And they showed us a complexly integrated, sustainable, low-tech, family-based food and fuel production system at their research facility. Then the family-scale farms aggregate into cooperatives, which in turn aggregate into larger organizations that can both disseminate information and represent them as political stakeholders. Later we saw the fruits of their work in the field. Since 1998, a CIPRES project has rebuilt the lives of 5,000 rural families. It's given them animals, seed, irrigation equipment, grain silos, and training to produce sufficient food and both biogas and fertilizers from animal waste.
And so when all these hurricanes, all these storms that we've been having, that kind of biodigester actually got flooded in one of our communities. It's called Villa Carmen.
The results have been increased production of eggs, dairy products, chickens, fruit, and vegetables for the participants, improved health and diet, sufficient gas for cooking fuel, and a corresponding 50% drop in firewood consumption. Revolving credit cooperatives have developed. Reforestation has occurred, and there is more pasture as well. Extension of the Cyprus model to 75,000 families could lift them all out of extreme poverty sustainably at a cost of about $30 million. Much of our time was spent in the campo, the rural countryside, among some very poor people. We went to 3 communities and several farms. We stayed in the homes of these impoverished people. We ate beans, rice, and tortillas 3 times a day, used the most primitive of outhouses, and took water from a bucket to wash. We slept on wood cots or on the floor. These rural campesinos and the mountains they live in were very beautiful. They were as graceful and intelligent as any people you'd find here in the U.S. Their country is rich in agricultural resources, with about 5 acres of good farmland per person. Here, too, we saw sophisticated, diverse, and complexly integrated, sustainable agricultural models operating at the family farm scale with appropriately selected technology for the current economic conditions.
The small producer is socially stable,
económicamente sostenible,
economically sustainable,
técnicamente competitivo.
technically competitive. Then this farmer doesn't have to sell their land because they have a place to work. When a project like this model starts, these projects can continue without more assistance, because the farmer then will be trained in the know-how that's needed for this type of farm. And this is a project of reinvestment, so that we can stop migration levels of farmers to the city, so that they can stay in the countryside and continue producing food for the world.
Con las políticas económicas de la globalización y estos nuevos tratados,
even in the context of these new economic policies of globalization in these treaties.
Intelligent people, rich land, and sophisticated knowledge of biologically wise, holistic solutions to a durable food security were in abundant evidence. Obviously, Nicaragua is quite capable of sustainably feeding its people well. But today in Nicaragua, 1 child out of every 3 experiences chronic malnourishment. Nearly 20% of the people of Nicaragua have migrated abroad, sending $600 million a year back home to families far away, an amount equal to 1/4 of Nicaragua's gross domestic product. These funds from split-up families are now Nicaragua's greatest source of vital foreign exchange. For many today, only material aid from church groups, NGOs, or Nicaraguans working abroad make it possible to meet their basic survival needs.
Un lado oculto que se escapa, que no lo puedo detener y vive dentro de mi ser, aunque no quiera